is life without sports? What are sports without rivalries? There are no better rivalries in sports than those of the NCAA. With March Madness upon us, it's time to take a look at some of the best college basketball rivalries in history. Hey guys, I'm Britt Johnson. Make sure you follow me on social media and click subscribe to the Fumble if you haven't already. It's my favorite time of the year. I just celebrated another trip around the sun, and of course, March Madness is here. There is nothing like a little tournament action to make up for a big sports drought.
What?
Well, yes, there are still sports going on. It's still a little dry because, it's not at any point in any season where anybody actually cares. For instance, the NFL season is over, college football is over, NBA is still in the middle of the regular season as well as the NHL. It only seems fair that we are blessed with the greatest playoff series of all, NCAA's basketball's March Madness. And with big rewards and high stakes also come even bigger rivalries. It's time to take a look at some of the biggest rivalries in college basketball. We will kick it off with Kentucky and Louisville, one of the largest intrastate rivalries around. These two schools are located 80 miles from each other, and according to MapQuest, because I do my research, it'll take about an hour and 20 minutes to get from one school to the next. This rivalry has dated back many years, and unlike some of the other huge rivalries, these two teams have actually battled it out during the tournament 6 times, dating all the way back to its first NCAA meeting in 1951. The single most important game of this rivalry starred one of the best big men in the game right now, Anthony Davis. The 2012 Final Four. Davis played for Kentucky, and Kentucky was the #1 seed in the South Regionals, completely destroying all of their other opponents. They reached the Final Four to meet their rivals, the Louisville Cardinals, who sat in the #4 seed and had to recently destroy the #1 seed in order to claim their spot in the Final Four. This game was one for the books, both teams leaving it all on the court. Kentucky secured the victory by the end of regulation and went on to be named champions 1 game later. A year later, Louisville clapped back with a championship of their own, winning the 2013 NCAA tournament. Things have changed since then. Kentucky still remains one of the greatest teams in college basketball, and Louisville seems like a distant memory, but this rivalry still lives on. Our next big NCAA men's basketball rivalry is going to come from the Big Ten Conference, Purdue and Indiana. This one is also an intrastate rivalry, as most are. This season, Purdue is ranked the 13th best team in the country, but are still in second in the conference, but nope, not behind Indiana. They are behind Michigan State. The Hoosiers haven't been doing too great in recruiting in the past few years, which caused them to have this happen. The 2019 NCAA tournament will actually be the 3rd straight season Indiana will completely miss the tourney, but that doesn't stop the rivalry from trucking along. This rivalry gets so personal that once Coach Bob Knight invited the Purdue athletic director to come on his TV show, well, the AD declined to come on the show, so Mr. Knight decided to make an ass out of the AD, literally, by bringing a donkey on the show wearing a Purdue hat. So classy. In 1991, after Purdue won all the matchups the previous year, head coach Bob Knight was secretly taped during a practice saying this: "I'm effing tired of losing to Purdue." And rightfully so. I guess traditions never really die, do they? I'm actually starting to think Bob Knight hated just about everyone. The Indiana Hoosiers didn't only have a big rivalry with Purdue, but also our next rivalry, which most know very well, which combined 2 teams I've already discussed, Kentucky and Indiana. Again, Indiana sucks right now, so let's not count the last few seasons. But in the past, these two really got into it. This rivalry became one for the books in 2011. An Indiana player by the name of Christian Watford wasn't about to go into overtime with the Wildcats because he disliked the team so much. So instead of settling for an easy bucket to tie the game and send it into overtime, Watford said, forget that, and went for the big 3, which he sunk beating the buzzer to hand the Hoosiers a huge victory over the Wildcats 73-72. After that amazing game, the two met later again that same season in the tourney where they took on each other during the Sweet 16. Kentucky got their revenge, winning the game and winning the title to become 2012 champs. What up, Anthony Davis? You're in here again. Sealing the deal for these two teams to become one of the best rivalries in college basketball. Next, we have two teams whose rivalry has gone on for years, whether the teams are good or whether they are bad. Georgetown and Syracuse. With these two teams, at least one of them is always ballin'. During their history of matchups, at least one of these basketball powerhouses has been ranked at some time, 80% of the time they played each other. The two teams have about 85 meetings, with Syracuse holding the title for the most wins against each other, but barely. The record is 45-40 in matchups, which is why this rivalry is so intense. This season, both teams are currently not listed in the top 25, and either team is expected to make the NCAA tournament, but the rivalry, like I said, lives on for better or for worse. The Georgetown and Syracuse rivalry may span across two conferences, but Georgetown also has a rivalry within their own conference, the Big East, against Villanova, who is ranked 25 in the NCAA basketball. The two may be from different states, which isn't usual with rivalries, but that hasn't stopped anything. Villanova is set to play in the tournament and not worried about Georgetown this season at all, but the rivalry is still ongoing. Let's take it back to before most of us were even born, 1985. Patrick Ewing, who went on to play for the Monstars in Space Jam. Oh yeah, and he played in the NBA too. Played for Georgetown and was looking to win his second straight championship, but the 8th-seeded Villanova had other plans. Georgetown gained some momentum back after that season and remained a top contender in college basketball, but the 2000s have been dominated by the Wildcats, who have won 11 of the last 12 contests against Georgetown. But Patrick Ewing is back to change all of that. Not as a player, though. The 11-time NBA All-Star is looking to spark things up again in Georgetown and started coaching the team back in 2017. Alright guys, before we get to the best college rivalry in NCAA history, let's take it all the way to the West Coast one time for the UCLA versus Arizona rivalry. Although UCLA isn't the basketball powerhouse it once was, the Bruins still hold the record for the most titles in NCAA history with 11 thanks to the years 1964 to 1975 and a coach named John Wooden who won 10 championships during those years, including 7 consecutive NCAA titles. Since then, UCLA only has one under their belt, and that was over 20 years ago in 1995, and haven't made it to the Final Four since 2008. Arizona, on the other hand, bloomed a little later in life and only has one championship under their belt, which was back in 1997. The battle against both of these teams, though, has been pretty consistent across the board. UCLA and Arizona have played each other 96 times, with 54 of those victories belonging to UCLA. They both sit at the bottom half of the Pac-12 right now with no chances of tournament life, but each matchup between the two is always a pretty good game. Last but not least, the alpha and the omega of NCAA basketball. The biggest college basketball rivalry of all time, you guys guessed it, Duke and UNC. These two teams have met an all-time total of 250 times, and UNC holds the lead with 139 victories. You know what they say in basketball, first to 100 wins. UNC has won 6 national championships, the latest one being in 2017, with Duke a banner behind them winning 5 championships, their last one in 2015. This rivalry started all the way back in 1920, so guess what guys? Next year will be the 100th year anniversary of this sport basketball rivalry, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. The schools are both located in North Carolina and just 20 minutes apart. Unlike the other teams on this list, they have met on the hardwood more than 85 times when both teams were ranked. This season, when these two teams met, the ticket prices went for an average of $2,500, with the highest ticket being sold for over $10,000 according to StubHub. Wow, so I'd say that's a pretty good rivalry, right? So what schools do you guys think have the best college rivalries of all time? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, click subscribe, and shop the Fumble store for the latest game day gear. I'm your host, Britt Johnson, for the Fumble, and I'll see you guys real soon.